Vamos e boa tarde. Eu sou o Mark do Be Real e Texas e eu sou aqui com meu amigo Sam Gabay, Merit Lending em Las Vegas. O nome do nosso canal é The Housing Hangout e a gente fala tudo do real estate e real estate lending. A gente vai explicar o que é que um americano precisa fazer para comprar uma casa aqui em Portugal. Agora, vai agarrar um café? Uma cerveja, a gente não importa. A gente só quer ter um bom momento com vocês. Vamos. It's good to be back in the saddle with you, Sam. It's been a long trip. So
my European brother.
Dude, that's it, man. Welcome back
from
to
Dallas.
Hangout. That's right. We appreciate all you tuning back in. I know we've been away for a couple of weeks, but it's because I've been in Portugal. And today's episode is going to be all about what it takes for an American to move to Portugal. So Portugal is actually one of the top 5 countries for American expats. I'm not sure if you knew that. And it's due to the warm weather, the recreation and entertainment. It's one of the safest countries in the world. And I can attest that you just feel safe. You know, I grew up in Long Beach, California, and now I live outside of Dallas. I could tell you, I love where I grew up, but it doesn't feel safe. Portugal, it absolutely feels safe. Another thing is low cost of living. Now, I know this is all very subjective. You know, the bigger cities are going to be obviously more expensive, but there's some great parts up and down Portugal that are very, very affordable. I'm a fan of the north. I've explored everything from north to south as much as I can. I've touched on all the major cities, and I do prefer the north of Portugal. Has quality education, quality medicine and healthcare. It's super laid back. Everyone, for the most part, is English speaking, and you just can't get away from the beauty and the historic element of Portugal. And I don't know if you want to drop some clips or some
before we get into the secrets of how Americans can buy properties in Portugal, why don't we take a look at Mark in Portugal? Let's check it out.
I wasn't lying. Beauty, history, it's got it all. Portugal's amazing. So moving on. So we're going to talk about what it takes for an American to buy a property in Portugal. So if you're buying cash, that obviously makes things very, very easy. There's virtually no restrictions for Americans to buy any property in the entire country of Portugal. There are going to be some fees with your purchase. So if you're purchasing cash, keep in mind that you're going to have what's called a transfer tax, right? So it's called the IMT. It's going to be anywhere from 1 to 6% of the purchase price. Okay, you got to keep that in mind when you're budgeting for your property. Okay, there's also a duty tax. It's 0.8% of the sales price. So you got to budget all of those 3 things in. And then after you purchase your property, okay, you're going to have an IMI, which is essentially property tax. And depending on where you're at, it's going to be 0.03 or 0.045% a year that you have to pay. Sam, did you know any of that?
I didn't know any of that, but I did pull off a few pointers from some homeowners in Portugal. Why don't we take a second and check out what tips they've got for us?
Typically, when you are buying a home here in Portugal, if you work with one agent, that agent is only going to show you the homes that they have listed with their agency. And so you may be missing out on a great deal of other properties. If you're working with the Century 21 agent, they're only going to show you Century 21 properties.
Okay, so basically there's no MLS system, right? It's just like listed individually. So this is probably a tip that I didn't know about 10 minutes ago. You want to work with multiple agents over there, very different than the US, right? Because the Century 21 guy is going to show you what his brokerage has listed, and the Remax guy is going to show you what Remax has listed. So if you really want to be well versed on what's available, you want to shop agents, apparently.
They don't have really the equivalent of what we have here, what we call like the MLS, multiple listing service. But they do have a website called idealista.pt, and it's idealista.pt, and that's kind of like your realtor.com or your Zillow.
Right.
Most people will list their properties on that.
All right, let's hear what else
Yeah.
these experienced homeowners have to tell us.
The process of purchasing a home in Portugal is that a notary is always involved. Now, the notary's role is to make sure that all the documents are in place and that the taxes are paid. But a notary is a neutral party. They don't work in the best interests of the buyer, and they don't work in the best interests of the seller. By hiring a lawyer or a solicitor to help you through the process, they are working in your best interests.
So, like you were saying, there's notary fees, but the notary is a neutral party, so they're not going to
Yeah.
help you in any way. I mean, they're just there to sign documents and make sure everything's stamped correctly, right? So this
Yeah, I'm
lady's
assuming
saying,
it's kind of like equivalent of like a title company here.
right. So she's saying hire a lawyer for your own protection. Now, what could go wrong, right? Why would you need a lawyer? Well, here's why.
But one of the really important things that they also do is they check whether or not the property has a mortgage or any type of debts attached to it. Because here in Portugal, anyone that purchases a home that has mortgages or debts attached to it, that new buyer inherits those debts.
All right. So you're going to hire a lawyer to make sure you're not taking on somebody's past debt, right? It's not like the US where you're going to get title insurance, right? So you got to follow, you've got to be pragmatic about the steps, okay? There's no big brother like the US babysitting the entire transaction for you. You've got to put it together yourself and make sure you're protected in the right way. And there's one more reason to hire an attorney, and then we'll get back to it. Let's check it out.
And this leads to our next mistake, which is buying properties that have illegal units on them. There are properties in Portugal that exist that have illegal or unauthorized structures on them. So when you are going through the process of looking at properties, you want to make sure that each property that you're interested in has all of the proper permitting documentation.
All right, so you're going to want to hire a lawyer to make sure there's no liens. I'm guessing Portugal's pretty laid back. You know what I mean? The dude's
Super
like,
laid back.
he just woke up, he had some lunch, he decided to build the bedroom upstairs with his
Little
homie
coffee.
that didn't exactly call City Hall. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure
Yeah, you know,
the things
for
are.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's a super laid back country, and I
Right.
can definitely see that happening. Moving on to the next segment, I want to talk about, I mean, we talked about if you want to buy a place cash, it's fairly straightforward. However, if you want to get a mortgage, it's a very similar process to here in the United States. There are a few differences though. So if you're trying to finance a place in Portugal, then expect to put anywhere from 30 to 40% down.
I mean, you can do
0%
foreign nationals
down.
can buy in the U.S. for 25 to 35% down. Okay, so it's really not that far off. You can expect to pay around 35%. I think with that kind of cash, you can probably buy a place just about anywhere in the world, right? But there's going to be
Yeah.
a few more steps in other countries. Okay, they don't have no income doc and DSCR, and they're not pushing loans through in 15 days like we are here. You know what I mean? It's going to be a little bit more of a tedious process. They're going to do their homework, right? But you
I
have
think
some
a lot of Americans though are we're so spoiled with
right. You
3%
think
down,
you think it's like
3.5%
Kmart, like just
down.
walk in there and hit
Yeah,
the
we
red
can
light
just
and
go-
give
yeah.
me the place.
So this is also different. There's an age limit, 75 years. You cannot get a mortgage if you're 75 years or older.
Wow, I didn't know
I'm
that.
assuming. Yep. Now, every lending institute is different, but you're going to need proof of funds, proof of income, proof of employment. You're going to have to show all of your debts and assets. And it says there's a limit of income of 35%.
So debt to
That's
income
all
here is 49%. Okay, so in Portugal it's going to be 35. So
35.
and
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm just learning this right now. So basically, if you make $10,000 a month, 35% of that is 3,500. So all your debts that you have, including the new house payment, has to be under the $3,500.
So the top banks there for Americans that can apply for a mortgage to buy a place in Portugal are Banco do Portugal, Millennium, BCP, BPI, Nova Banco, Banco Invest, and Activo Bank.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research as well. Aside from that, okay, let's say you don't fit in that box and you don't have all the documents that they want in Portugal, or you're having a hard time producing them, or you don't have the 35% debt to income ratio, you're maybe a little bit higher than that. There is one more alternative, and that's to find an international bank. Now, what I mean by that is a bank that has operations across the world, like an HSBC, which we know has operations in America and may also have operations in Portugal, right? I know, for example, Scotiabank, which is a Canadian bank, also has branches down here in America, and I saw them have branches over in Colombia. So there are banks that do business all over the world. Those are called international banks. You can also try them. They might have different rules because they might have a better understanding of your U.S. income, okay?
Wrapping everything up, Portugal is a beautiful country. I really encourage you to visit first before buying anything. Actually, go visit a couple of times. The cost of living is great. There's so many positives to it, and you won't regret it.
So we found out that Mark is from Dallas, but behind closed doors is actually from Portugal. We showed you the beautiful scenery in Portugal. We showed you how to get a mortgage in Portugal. That's it for me, Mark. Got anything else to add?
Go Dragons.
Go Dragons. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the beach. See you in Texas next week.